Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Fuego here.
Back with another in-theater review. That is, this movie is available in theaters right now, not on VOD just yet, as of the release of this review, which is, we are recording this on the Saturday previous to its release, or Sunday. It's Sunday already. Ugh. So currently on the channel, you're seeing the last day of Christmas in Hell, but next week, so probably in the next day or two, you'll see this review pop up. Guys, what we're here to talk about is Monster Hunter. So it's, about a week late as far as the zeitgeist goes and its actual release, but this is something that we absolutely had to talk about. Fuego and I being creature feature fans on the channel. Obviously, Paul W.S. Anderson and Milla Jovovich being veterans in the horror community with the Resident Evil series.
Six of them, I want to say, right?
Yes, I believe so. So, guys, we had to talk about this, of course. This is a movie based on the Capcom video game series.
Have you played this video game?
I have not.
Any of them?
I have not, no, because it is a sort of multiplayer game where you team up and go to take down monsters, and I just, in this new era of multiplayer competitive video games, I just haven't gotten into it, although Monster Hunter doesn't sound like a competitive one, it sounds like a cooperative one, but...
Which is what I prefer with any sort of multiplayer, is
at this point,
instead
me
of
too.
like deathmatchy
At this point, me too. But I don't know that many people that play video games like that, like me anymore, so...
I was getting this confused with Monster Rancher, which I know is another completely...
Monster Rancher?
Isn't there a Monster Rancher sort of game?
I mean, that sounds like Farmville mixed with Monster
I think
Hunter,
it's like
so...
Animal Crossing, but with monsters, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Whatever.
Haven't heard of
As
that.
far as like video game IPs go, Monster Rancher is a thing as well. But this is totally different, obviously. And I was very curious. I mean, because Paul W.S. Anderson, he works very well within the constraints of
PDSA.
PDSA. There you go. The stinking
Yeah,
phone.
turn that down.
It's making noise.
How dare you?
Yeah, but WS, I mean, he works well, I think, within the confines of the PG-13 a lot of the time. I mean, hey, he does his best Mortal Kombat, for God's sake. I mean, I still prefer...
Mortal Kombat was great,
Yeah, I think it's a unanimous consent, though, that Event Horizon is his best movie that he did shortly after Mortal
100%.
Kombat, and that was R-rated craziness, but... Yeah, he's kind of mastered the,
But look, this is a lot closer to the Resident Evil movies.
In every possible way, especially with his wife, starring and everything. And, it was supposed to come out on Christmas Day. They moved it up a week. We did review this previously, and we had some technical issues, and so this is our second talk about it.
So second pass.
Yeah, but we both went to theaters to see it, obviously, since that's your only option
Separate
currently.
but equal.
Yes, exactly. And empty theaters, too, man. There were literally... It was maybe a 400 or 500 capacity big theater, great Dolby sound and all that stuff. Not the same like Dolby full experience sort ofness that you got to see. But I mean, I was reminded how much I missed the theater experience to just give very brief overall impressions. I mean, the swooping sound mixing and the surround and everything. And this is the sort of film that definitely dictates being seen on a big screen.
That's why I went to the Dolby.
Because of the scale of the creatures and because of everything else.
3 screenings a day in the Dolby with the new restrictions.
Yeah.
And I specifically waited, even though a morning or noon screening would have been better for
Way
me.
cheaper.
I waited until a 4 o'clock screening because that's what was available at the theater, and I wanted to see it in the Dolby screen because the Dolby screens... they are the most intense. They're even more intense sound-wise than the IMAX screens.
That's where the
out here in Arizona.
The seats.
Yes,
right?
yeah. There's stuff throughout the seats, all through. Yeah, and I've taken Susie Von Slaughter to a movie in the Dolby screen, and she was blown away, wanting to go back on her own free time for the vibration alone. But nonetheless. This movie was made...
That's funny, I just...
it took you a second, okay. But this movie was made for that sort of big, crazy sound system because this is a big, crazy, dumb movie. This is not...
Big, dumb fun, I think
Big, dumb fun,
last
yeah,
time.
100%.
Yeah.
Big, dumb fun movie. It is definitely... There are monsters. There are big monsters. The variation in type of the bigger monsters is not that far. Like all three of the big versions are all pretty big analogs of each other.
It's only when they got in the caves with the spiders, stuff was a little bit
the spider, the
distinguished
weird
and
beach
different.
creature that jumps at them, and then the actual, herbivores that were drinking the water.
Yeah,
exactly.
The oasis. Well, it wasn't quite an
So
oasis.
you got like 5 or 6 or 7 different monster types in the movie, but 2 featured prominently, and quite honestly, the movie didn't really need a lot more than that. It definitely didn't strive to have a lot more than that. I mean, from right off the bat, basically we start off. Well, I don't want to get into the. I'm going a little ahead of myself.
We will get into the story here in a moment.
Indeed, but the overall thoughts are this: it is dumb fun. There is no depth for any character. There is massive conveniences. Yeah, but there's massive conveniences throughout. It is a stupid movie. But it is a stupid movie that I was happy to go to the theater and experience, because I haven't been able to experience this kind of movie in a theater in quite a while due to the current pandemic situation. So on that level, I might have appreciated it even more than I might have appreciated it had we seen it without all of the pandemic issues going on. How about for you for overall?
Yeah, I touched on a little bit of it, but just to double down a little bit more so, especially with so many viewing trends changing, and I've talked to a lot of friends, like you and various other reviewers, and just kind of pundits and stuff included, I feel like this sort of film is what is going to keep the theater experience alive in a lot of ways, where it's straight up like going to a theme park. You know, when you have something that is big, spectacle, crazy sound and visuals and everything, I'm totally fine with seeing a little indie film at home on my TV, but it's a big tentpole release like this that needs that sort of attention, and where I feel like theaters will be saved because people still do want to see stuff like this on the biggest screen possible, the best sound system possible, whether it's, a big creature thing like this or a Marvel DC, Star Wars, or whatever the hell it may be.
Although I am happy I stayed home to watch Wonder Woman 84.
I know. Are you going to review that separately yourself? Because I talked about it.
No, I'm not going to touch that on this channel.
No, okay. But yeah, man, just stuff like this, I still enjoyed it. I legitimately did. I had fun with this movie, despite the fact that the story is about as paper thin as I would expect from something that was a co-production between Toho in Japan and Warner Brothers Legendary here in America. But that's
Effects
never
were lopsided, unfortunately.
Yeah, regrettably. But I still enjoyed it. And if you're in an area where numbers or whatever aren't quite as high, or you feel safe going into a theater masked up and very far away from a lot of people, which I must say, the theaters, for me, and this is just personal opinion, they're doing their damnedest. They're doing a lot better than I think bars and restaurants and that sort of open ship. Maybe.
But I gotta keep it real.
Yeah.
This movie is not worth braving the theaters for.
Maybe not.
This movie is not worth braving the theaters for.
It's a movie that is.
It
gonna
benefits
be a lot
from
more,
the big
yes,
screen.
It's going to be a lot more enjoyable on a big screen.
But it is not
it's
worth the
enough.
risk. It's not good enough to risk it for this movie.
Yeah. No, I feel you there.
So, getting into the story, it is very simple. So, Milla Jovovich plays the captain or commander of this regiment of military people. I don't know the terms. But nonetheless, she is the leader of this little group that are going to investigate what happened to Bravo Team. I'm guessing they're Alpha Team or whatever it is. They're going to investigate what happened to Bravo Team, who basically disappeared off their radar in the middle of the desert.
Any Resident Evil similarities there?
Not at all. No, but so they go, and all of a sudden this big lightning and thunderstorm kicks up, and as it kicks up around them, they get transported to another world. This group of military people in search of Bravo Team. They quickly find the remnants of Bravo Team, who obviously disappeared in a similar fashion, and many of the group are killed off in rapid succession from a giant monster. Essentially, Fuego, you'll forgive me, but this movie was essentially, not unlike the first episode of The Mandalorian of Season 2, this was space graboids for the first hour of this movie. Because this Diablo creature, this Diablo creature dove underground and swam through the sand and patrolled this rock area where our main character Milla Jovovich, one of the remaining military people, without spoiling anything, she is stuck in this rock area where at night spiders rule, and during the day you are stuck because of this graboid-like giant monster swimming around.
Yeah, so she's kind of landlocked within her situation after the rest of her team is gone, and she, in due time, ends up finding a guy who was one of the presumed survivors from a crashed, almost like sand ship of sorts that we see at the very beginning of the movie.
A native sand ship. Like there's a pirate ship that sails the sands of the desert the way our ships would sail the seven seas.
Yes, in this alternate universe as whatever. And what is the name of the actor you said that?
Ron Perlman.
No, not Perlman.
Oh, Tony Jaa.
Tony Jaa. Yeah, exactly.
So Ron Perlman and Tony Jaa are on the same crew at the very beginning of the movie when we see this first sand pirate ship, and Tony Jaa, in the course of events, is knocked off the ship, and then we go to Milla Jovovich and her characters on our world. So. They know each other. They're both involved, but they haven't seen each other in a while.
Yeah, and it just kind of goes from there, trying to figure out if anybody can be saved and what escape would entail, once all of that stuff has been just kind of figured out. But really, it's very condensed until the third act, in the fact that, okay, you get over to this other world, you get the whole military aspect and the very basic level camaraderie amongst these guys, like singing this sort of, army song.
It's essentially, I don't know what I've been told.
The equivalent, yes.
But it's a new version of it, yeah.
Yeah. But then it's like, okay, can we get over? And then what could potentially, if Milla Jovovich's character gets over into her world, could anything also cross over along with her from, the nasty monsterness that they've been fighting this whole time? And that's really, without spoiling stuff about the extent of what we can mention. But we do get a reemergence of Ron Perlman, and a few other characters, including the one
Lion King Ron Perlman.
Yes. And man, he was also on the Beauty and the Beast show with Linda Hamilton back in the 80s.
That's more appropriate. True.
Yeah, but in this one, he felt more like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII in his 50s.
I'm not from your world,
exactly.
but I know and speak your language perfectly.
I got this big sword, and I've got this
giant, powerful axe.
Yeah. Was it an axe? I just know it was a ginormous.
It was a giant axe.
Ginormous, oversized weapon.
No, because that was one of the weapons you can play with in the game.
Yeah, okay.
So he had this giant, land.
I know the other guy did
Tony Jaa.
Tony Jaa.
How dare you?
So yeah, story-wise, I mean, relatively thin in that regard. It's like dimensional jump, some creature interaction, trying to save your arse, see if your friends are still alive, and then how to get yourself back over there. And that's really about the extent of it. It's
very
not really
simple.
Yeah. It's not trying to be like, as I often joke about on here. It's not Shakespearean theater, man. When you're going to a film by Paul W.S. and his wife, that sort of partnership, and pretty much everything that guy has done post his '90s output. It's big dumb fun, as we've meant. It's spectacle. It's enjoyable, but don't expect anything deeper than a kiddie pool. So
Truth.
Yeah.
Acting wise, it's a matinee. It's a Saturday matinee kind of movie, but with sort of a lot more studio money behind it. It's not the deepest as far as story goes, so the actors don't have a lot to chew on. A lot of the actors. There's not a ton of dialogue because it's largely dialogueless Tony Jaa and Milla Jovovich talking without actually being able to talk. So it's sparse in the dialogue, heavy on the grunting sort of acting, but I don't know. I thought everyone did a fine job. It just wasn't overly impressive, I guess.
Yeah, fine job for what was asked of them. In the last time we tried reviewing this, I was like, I was getting some very low-level shades of the episode of TNG, Star Trek Next Generation, where Picard and the other alien, where they don't speak the same language. It's like, Dharmaka Tanagra, when the walls fell, all this different stuff, trying to find some like middle level of communication, which they kind of do with Chocolat and a few bits here and there. They do seem to become fast friends, though, as far as the acting goes. I mean, but hey, the film isn't like insanely long either. I think this was right around the 90-minute range, so it's not like one of those laboriously lengthy, sort of big spectacle films like this. It's not like Avengers, 2.5, 3 hours, anything crazy like that. T.I. is also in this for whatever reason. The rapper's still acting. He actually has one of my favorite scenes in the film as far as creature interaction goes, where she is trying to save him in the spider pit, and we'll get to that once we segue into effects. But yeah, Perlman's tamming it up. He knows what's expected of him, and the rest of, Milla's the battalion or crew, whatever the hell you want to call them, they're all just fine. But,
Just okay. Yeah.
yeah, just okay.
Nothing to write home about necessarily.
No.
But
it's not necessary in this sort of film.
No.
The action needs to be badass. The creatures need to look cool, and that's
to that end,
for the
let's
most
get into
part.
the effects. I mean, most of the time it's okay, but there are some times where there's some creature chasing the humans action that look very PlayStation 3 graphics.
Oof,
Not even PlayStation 4.
That's 2 generations ago now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could consider PlayStation 4 pushing it a little bit at times, but the CG is obvious at times and not so obvious other times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially when you get to the actual dragon creature towards the end versus the graboid creature towards the the first hour or whatever. I think the dragon looked a little bit better, but
Agreed.
you could tell they sort of divided up the budget as to where the effects budget was going to go, and not all the creatures looked as good as all the other creatures, which I think ultimately is a problem for the movie.
Yeah, true. I did like the spider stuff though, and I think maybe the lack of lighting in like these dark cavernous areas and stuff like that lends to it, and we do get a little bit of cool practical in like characters being stuck in these like egg sacs almost, in the cave after the spiders have captured them and whatnot, and who knows what they're using them to incubate with. There's a scene with a particular character, without spoiling, that reminds me at least to the tiniest more PG-13, not R-rated bit of The Mist, where you go into that pharmacy and there's a couple characters who have spider stuff like on their bodies, and they're just kind of gestating and nastiness like that. So I mean, props to bits of good practical, but it was really a CGI heavy movie, as you would expect. Well shot for the most part, though. I mean, Paul W.S. Anderson does make he's very much like, I don't want to go. He's somewhere between Michael Bay and James Cameron for me, where he's not as bad as Bay in a lot of ways, because I feel like sometimes his stories have the tiniest more bit of sophistication or elevation or whatever. But all three of those guys, despite some of their deficiencies and whatever, they do love the big spectacle, and it's a good looking movie with its camera work, and despite the fact that it's very grounded on this one location for most of the second act, it still all looked pretty to me, despite I don't know, I feel like they spent most of the money on the effects stuff as opposed to multiple locations and really making it varied in that regard, because it's like desert the whole damn time.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, outside of that, the movie is, well, I have to say the editing is a problem for me.
Yeah, you mentioned
Paul
this last
W.S.
time, too.
Anderson, his editing style is very choppy. You lose track of what's going on with the action because I don't know if they just didn't get the right coverage or if the vision isn't quite right, but the editing is so choppy, you lose track of the action, and it brings you out of the movie, in my opinion. So the editing is a big detractor here, and if it's not mainly the editing, then I think it's mainly the lack of coverage that they got when shooting the movie. So wherever that fault lies, I think that was a big problem for the movie.
Yeah, and wherever they were shooting this, whether it was like, because I don't know offhand, whether it was like South Africa or Australia or somewhere in California or whatever for this sort of desert scenery, but yeah, I can definitely see that. I mean, just because like the shots look cool if they don't all like flow together in that more seamless sort of variety, and stuff was a little jarring at times, and whether it was some occasional use of handheld or for some of those action sequences or whatever. I did like the score though, and that was one thing that I mentioned the previous time.
Mm-hmm.
It's got like a very video gamey, synthy kind of thing that we're seeing become more prevalent. Throwback to a lot of 80s stuff, whether video games or movies or whatever. I do enjoy that sort of approach, and it's almost become mainstream at this point. Smaller films did it for a while, horror, science fiction, whatever, but now the big boys are doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
So bring that on. I enjoyed that. But aside from that, this was like, I know we don't rate here. This was a solid 3 for me. I had fun. I'm glad I saw it in theaters, but I can't necessarily say it's a definitive recommendation to go to a theater for.
3 out of 5 or 3 out of 10?
Out of 5.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, yeah, that's going to do it for our review of Monster Hunter 2020. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Thank you very much to our patrons for supporting the channel. If you enjoyed this video, click the like button and subscribe to make sure you don't miss other review episodes like this going forward. This week, we have a review of Spontaneous. We have a review of... What's the other big one that we reviewed last week for release this week?
Greenland.
Greenland, yes, the
sorry,
asteroid
took me
movie.
a
Big
quick
asteroid
moment.
movie. Thank you.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'd forgotten. And
Yeah,
we have to unbox the new BAM box in the other room as well, which I totally spaced. So
Yeah, and the thing about
that'll be
Greenland,
coming
we
as
saw
well.
that was another film that I feel like lended itself a lot better to
Mm-hmm.
a big screen, even though now it's only available for streaming at home. So,
So, there you go, guys. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, Jaime, and Fuego!
And remember,
Stay
stay scared.